So if you're into metal and metalcore music and you've listened to bands like August Burns Red, Miss May I, and All That Remains, and you've always wondered how they write those really fast-paced, classic metalcore style riffs, we're going to break down how you can use one simple scale to achieve that. So again, I'm in a drop tuning, I'm in drop C, but this applies to any drop tuning and can also be applied to any standard tuning. So I'll break down the short track that I played at the beginning of this video to kind of break down how I used the scale to accomplish that metalcore style riff. And in most of my previous videos, we've focused on playing the minor scale on the 5th fret of the 5th string, and we're going to do the same thing today, and it looks like this. And one of the advantages of being in a drop tuning is that you can rely heavily on the open low string to fill in any dead space in between some of the lead notes that you would play in the riff. So for the opening part of the main riff, I'm really relying heavily on the low open string and palm muting it to fill in some dead space. In the first part, I'm just playing the first 3 notes of the minor scale, but I just played the 2nd note, the 3rd note, and then went to the 1st note to make it sound a little more interesting so that I'm not just playing the scale in order. So right there, you can already see how using the minor scale can give you that classic metalcore style riff. And to flesh out the rest of the riff, I just wanted to play something where I kind of did an ascending pattern up the scale and then finish the end of it with a short descending pattern. And that looked like this. And just using that simple descending pull-off pattern at the end gave it a nice turnaround so that I can easily move into the next section. And for the next section, I wanted to play something similar, but make it just a little bit different enough that it uses the same motif, but it has an interesting sound, so I'm not playing the exact same thing both times. And this is a pretty straightforward concept where the first thing you write should kind of sound like a question, and then the second thing you write should sound like a response or an answer to that. So the first part I wrote went like this. And the next section played something very similar, but I wanted to make it different enough that it kind of sounds like it answers the first riff. So the call and response at the very ends of the riff sounded like this. So everything kind of has the same coherent sound because it's being played in the same scale in the same position, but I played it just different enough so it sounds really interesting to the listener. Another really useful concept, especially when in a drop tuning, to help make it sound like the riff moves or has a progression, is to remember that the open low string can play the same pattern in the scale that the high C string plays. So if the high C string plays this, the low C string can play the same exact frets or the same exact notes. So the next section of the riff, I wanted to start it on the 5th fret of the low string instead of on the open, and that went like this. So this way we can start to hear how it builds as like a progression, and it starts to build a little bit of tension, and then we want to hear it kind of release. So we can already hear how this starts to move the riff, and we can feel ourselves move with it. So it doesn't stay in one place, and it sounds really intriguing and really interesting. And then for the 4th part of this main riff, I just moved the low C string from the 5th fret up to the 7th fret, and that sounded like this. I thought that was a really good place to end that riff, and it has 4 equal parts, and so together the whole thing looked like this. So another way that we can look at something like the underlying progression here would be to look at the low open string. So we're really just playing the low open C string, then the C string on the 5th fret, then we're playing it on the 7th fret. So we could say that that would be our underlying progression. And then a classic metalcore sound would be to eventually move it up to the 8th fret. So again, we're kind of circling this idea around the minor scale on the 5th fret of the 5th string, and then filling in some space using the open low C string. And a riff like this gives you a lot of options of what you can play afterwards. I chose to go into a kind of fast-paced breakdown, but you can go into another similar riff. You can move it up and down the neck to make it sound like it moves a little bit more. You can go into a chorus, you can play a clean part afterwards. Really, it's up to you what you want to come after that. And the final product, like what you heard at the beginning of the video, has some production elements. It obviously has drums, it has bass guitar. I'm dual tracking the rhythm guitar, so it's the same riff, just being panned left and right. And that's a little production trick that makes it sound really big and makes the guitars sound really big and wide. I'm also playing some harmonies, so maybe at the end of the riff you'll hear something where it sounds like two guitars are playing something slightly different. And that's something I'll get into in a later video. Basically, it's just playing the same pattern in the scale, but just moving it up, usually by a 3rd scale degree, and that gives it a really nice sound. And bands like All That Remains and Avenged Sevenfold use this a lot, and it has a really cool big sound to it. So give this a try, see what you can come up with. Again, start small, start simple, just get really good at one aspect or one concept or one technique, and then start to build from there. And you can always add the speed later, and the speed really does make things sound a little more cohesive and really drives home that fast-paced metalcore sound. And thanks again for all the support for these videos, I really appreciate it. I'm gonna get to as many topics as I can, and I wanna make sure I cover it in a way that makes sense and that everything is really cohesive so that we can start applying these things right away to our writing. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you get notified for these videos every time I post them. And if you are looking for one-on-one private lessons, I do offer virtual lessons, and you can reach out to me by going to the link in the description below. I would love to hear from you and love to hear more about your goals and see if I can help you play and write what you've always wanted to play and write. So thanks again, hope this video was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.